Brian Lilley here with John Robson. Of course, if you watch this on Sun News, then neither one of us needs any introduction. And John, one of the things we love talking about on Byline on Sun News was history. And I know we talked about this, but you are more than halfway through your crowdfunding project on the Magna Carta documentary. Give us an update.
Okay, yeah, we're at 51% now. We're just over $38,000. We've got 3 weeks to go. And we need people to step up and make this project happen. You know as well as I do, at Sun News Network, the old system failed us. The centrally regulated, government-supported media that centralizes everything and makes you pass through an official gate, it didn't work. So we're trying something different, really different. We are going to the people to fund the story of the people's freedom. And once the documentary's made, anybody who sponsors us for $25 or more, pays the cost of postage, gets the DVD. People say, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to sell it once it's made? We're selling it before it's made, and we're distributing it the same way we funded it, through the people. You get it, you show it, you share it. That's how the story gets out. Canadians telling one another the real story of Canada, of a nation born in freedom, in their living rooms, in church basements.
Okay. So why this instead of CBC? Like, am I not going to see this on the Canadian Broadcast Corporation? Is the state broadcaster not going to tell me this great story?
Incredibly enough, they're not. They have this version, not just of a multicultural Canada, of a peacekeeping Canada, but far more insidious, of a Canada whose citizens cannot do things for themselves and need things done for them. And that when we were trying to make this documentary and talking to people, a lot of them said, find a broadcaster, find a friend in the establishment, and you can get big government subsidies, $100,000 of other people's money. But we said we don't want to do it that way. That's not who Canadians are. We want just to reach out to people and they will do this themselves. Because that's the society that Magna Carta built. By guaranteeing due process, property rights, security of the person, they made space for citizens to flourish, to act, and to dream. And we're asking people to act in a manner worthy of Magna Carta in order to keep the story going.
Okay, so why is Magna Carta important then? It's an 800-year-old dusty document that nobody reads, that, as far as I can tell, our Supreme Court justices are even unfamiliar with.
Well, there's one good reason right there. Yeah, Magna Carta is so old it's written on sheepskin in abbreviated Latin. It's sealed in wax. You know, King John didn't even sign it. But in it, it doesn't just have these rights, the right to a fair trial, the right to justice that is speedy and affordable and that you can get to court, that the king his agents can't take your stuff without paying you right away. But the barons, supported by the populace, when they made John agree, they made him agree that these had always been the rights of Englishmen. This wasn't some fanciful philosophical construction. This is how it's always been. You're a no good wretch. You're trying to take it away from us, and you won't. And through the centuries, time and again, kings have tried to undermine the people's liberties or break them by a frontal attack. And Charles I invaded Parliament with a drawn sword, dragged the Speaker out of his chair and said, "Where are my enemies?" And the Speaker replied, "As it please your Majesty, I have neither eyes to see nor tongue to speak in this place except as the house directs me." So he, at risk of his life, defied the king. And this has happened again and again. And that's why these freedoms still exist, because people have always said, no, it is our birthright and you're not taking it away. And today, when it's slipping away for other reasons, in some ways more well-intentioned, but due process is disappearing, regulation is overwhelming us, governments that can act without the consent of the people, omnibus bills you can't make sense of, human rights commissions that don't follow due process, interference with your right to use and enjoy your property. All this stuff is getting away from us, and we need to do what people did in the 17th century, in the 19th century, in the 15th century, in the 14th century, back to Magna Carta and beyond, and say, no, we are a free people, these rights belong to us, we have inherited them, and we will pass them on to our posterity. The story does not end here.
Okay, let's relate this to a few things that have happened lately, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, but High River and the gun grab, and you now have some citizens taking the RCMP, the Alberta government, to court over illegal search and seizure. I think that is something that ties back to what you're talking about, that this is people standing up and saying, you violated our rights. These are our rights. You cannot take them away just because there's a flood.
Exactly. And what has happened, again, through the centuries, when the Crown found some new way to interfere with people's rights, they went to court and the judges and lawyers examined and said, okay, what does that old right mean in this new context? And time and again they said, the memorable words of William Pitt, former Prime Minister of Great Britain, just as the American Revolution was brewing. So it's kind of a warning to the king. He said, an Englishman's home is his castle. May it never so frail. The roof may leak, the rain may enter, the storm may enter, but the King of England may not enter without his permission. And in High River, agents of the state entered without permission because they were convinced they had a higher and nobler purpose. But that's always what the kings have thought. The citizens don't understand their best interest. We will make them do what they ought to do. And they've never been allowed to get away with it. This is a perfect example of that. They must not be allowed to get away with it. And it's citizens standing up and saying, no, not under Henry VIII, not under Charles I, not under George III, and not today.
Okay, let's talk about overregulation quickly, because this is an ongoing problem. Mark Milke even wrote a book about it a couple of years ago, Stealth Confiscation. You've got regulation upon regulation over how we can use our property, how we can live our lives, to the point where the government is insinuating itself all over the place.
Yeah, and one of the great cases he cites about a railway right-of-way out in Vancouver, where the municipality zoned it so it couldn't be used for anything but a walkway. And the railway sued, said, we've lost a whole bunch of value in the property because now we can't run a railroad. And the court said, oh, no, you still own it. There's been no diminishment of your ownership just because you can't do anything with it that you might want to. That was an outrageous ruling. But again, it goes back, Magna Carta, it has promises, the barons can't lose their castles. Oh, sure, they're rich and powerful. But again, that line that the ordinary man may not be deprived of corn or other movables except with immediate payment, that you cannot take away what people have made with their own hands, with their own time and effort and daring. And it's just a matter of applying it in a novel situation. So a great jurist, Edward Cook, said that the new corn must come out of old fields. That is, that it is in the principles laid down in Magna Carta that we must develop new specific legal instruments to safeguard the old rights, because that's what made Canada great. That is why we're free. That is why we're prosperous. It's even why we're powerful. That liberty is power. And if we decide those rights are outdated because they were written down on sheepskin when there wasn't the internet, then we will cease to have this incredible vitality, this dynamism that makes Canada a wonderful place. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think Canadians will step up, including to fund this documentary, make it happen, and then share the result, even if the CRTC does not wish that such a thing should be.
All right. Well, you've heard from the man, and you know what to do now. Go to Kickstarter. Drop a few dollars, even $20 into that. If everyone $5, but if everyone that watches this were to give you $20, this thing would be funded right now.
We would make it.
All right. So small donations matter, people. You've got the address at the bottom of the screen, or just go to Kickstarter and search John Robson or Magna Carta, and it's going to come up. And make sure that you do it, and do it soon, because time is of the essence.
Thank you.